took a one-way ticket to New York City.
Ooh.
And kind of became his like couch guy for his NYU dorm, Palladium to be exact.
Okay.
And it was there because I wanted to study film.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be a filmmaker since I was like around 8. But when I went and crashed a cinematography 101 class in Tisch in NYU, I just turned 20, and I remember it just clicked.
It hit you.
Yeah.
Like, this is what I want to do.
Absolutely. And that's where I kind of found out that there's an artist such as a cinematographer, and that there's an art such as cinematography.
Right.
You know?
Which is the difference? Because originally I was asking him questions before. You thought you had wanted to be a director. And
all my life, since I was 8, I think it all started when my dad sat me on his lap, and my family in Puerto Rico, they bought a new TV, so you know, it was like a normal family night. My mom would cook, and the whole family gathered. And because my dad was a very successful and well-respected sports fisherman.
Really?
Yeah, it's so random.
Wow.
Yeah, but I grew up.
okay.
I grew up with like in a house with trophies of fishing.
Okay.
So because of that, though, the reason I mention this is because I was 8 years old. Here comes a new TV. Here comes a family. And we watched a movie. The movie was Jaws.
Oh.
So I was very intrigued by how my family reacted without seeing too much. So there was this weird curiosity into how motion picture had a psychological effect.
Yeah, how they're eliciting this reaction.
Into humans, into people. And so I always wanted to become a film director. But it was there in NYU that when I crashed that class, that Cinematography 101 class, that's where it all clicked to me, because I realized that everything that I've always admired
about film,
film was, the cinematography, the photography aspect of it.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, little people, I don't think the general maybe public knows that there's a difference between those things. So, so have you had any mentors besides maybe your father, who is this crazy prize sports fisherman? That's a whole other topic.
It's just so cool because my dad has nothing to do with film whatsoever. He's such an old school guy, but he's definitely responsible for it.
For that. So, but since then, have you had any mentors, and like if you have, like, have you found it? How important is it to have one?
Oh, it's very important. Yes, I have lucked out with incredible mentors. The first mentor was Ricardo Jatan. He was just a production designer on a shoot for me, award-winning production designer. Met him in New York City when I was walking up and down Manhattan looking for work. I would have a spiel, and I would have my resumes printed, and I would, hey, I'm currently studying film. Can I work for you for free? Blah blah blah. And I think after the 90th try, I'm walking in Soho, and it's super cold outside. I'm super bummed. I'm like, shit, I'm not gonna make rent.
Yeah, how's life gonna happen here?
Yeah, I'm 21, I think, by the time. And here's this like really cool Canadian Indian guy who like brings me in. Ricardo was really my first mentor. He introduced me actually to my first film set ever.
Oh, wow.
It was a commercial for Kyocera, and I was introduced to Nimi Than, who's an art director also from New York. So that was like my first mentor. When I moved to Los Angeles, one of the most important people in my career thus far, I think probably one of the most important relationships I've had in my career thus far, I met in a Hanukkah party. Go figure. It's just so funny. But I met this really cool guy called Andy Romanoff. And when I met Andy was just like, I was dressed really properly. Andy just dressed like whatever.
Yeah, he didn't care.
With a Panavision sweater. And my 23-year-old version of myself went up to him and said, something like Panavision, awesome. I don't know, something a 23-year-old person would say. And I kid you not, I think like an hour later, I sat down by the fire. I think we had whiskey or something. And I had the most intense cinematography chat with this man.
Yeah.
And at the end of the night, he's like, "Hey, Rafael, whenever you're ready, give me a visit." And he shakes my hand, and he gives me his card, which I thought was really smooth because you only see that in the movies.
That's a pretty slick move. Yeah,
Pretty slick move.
You're like, you only see this in the movies.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make movies.
Yeah. And then, and I look at the business card, and Andy Romanoff was my second mentor, and he was the vice president of crane operations and Panavision. Oh. So because of that introduced me to Panavision and the cinematography circuit and world in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Because of Andy, I was introduced to Panavision. They saw me grow, before I became a DP.
Yeah.
I would spend so much time there, so much time always.
Just kind of absorbing anything.
Just absorbing, and I met Alexa Lopez. She's another mentor of mine, and she's been incredible. We call her the godmother because she has been completely in charge of
all of that.
Of like 8 or 10 of us in our careers, and it's just the incredible brotherhood and familiarity that you get in the community when you have a mentor. It's just really important.
Super important.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, so really quick, what work are you most proud of, and like, how did you go about getting that gig, or how did that come about?
Rampage.
Last Rampage.
Rampage is definitely my proudest work. And it got picked up by Netflix, and I think it got picked up by Amazon now.
That's amazing.
And it was my first actual picture that came out to theaters. And it was incredible. From A to Z, I mean, it makes a huge difference when you work with a very proper film director.
Sure, yeah.
It's this ballet where you both have to feed each other to come up with the best. And when I usually read a script, I got the script, I was shooting a film in Mississippi. And I get a call from a line producer friend of mine that we've worked together before on a previous Netflix film. He's like, "Would you be interested in this type of film? It's with this director." I'm like, "I love this director."
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, you know. So I flew in early to LA, made that line for the interview, read the script in my hotel room, broke it down. I was so pumped with it. And it's a timepiece.
Yeah.
It's based in 1978. When I arrived, I was pretty nervous because I had to go through like 3 rounds of interviews, and on the second round, I find out who I'm up against.
Oh, wow.
And they're huge. They're like ridiculously already successful DPs.
Yeah.
So I was like, "Oh man, I'm not gonna."
Might as well just throw in the towel now.
Yeah. And I remember
it's over.
I remember calling my DP mentor. I have 2 DP mentors. One of them is Paul Cameron, and I lucked out with that because through Paul I learned most of my lighting and just some of the magic. And I remember calling them and being like, "Man, like, what's the process, and all this stuff." And you just really got to be yourself.
Yeah.
Honestly.
I mean, people.
It's all about personality.
People can smell the BS. You know what I'm saying? It's a little bit, and you can't necessarily, I think, fake your way through some of that. But
no, absolutely. And Last Rampage was also incredible because of the cast. And I per se, as a DP, when I read a new script or I read that script, I always have my own interpretation, and I bring that interpretation to the table to my director, so I can mold it into my director's vision.
Yeah.
So when I met Dwight and I told him my interpretation, he was really mind blown. He was like, "Man, everything you're saying is really, well, Raph, everything you're saying is great, but I don't see it in your reel." And and then it's funny because when we went, it was so awkward. We went through my reel, and he just pinned out the stuff he liked. And then it was just like done. And then
you're like,
I was
okay,
like,
that's it, that's over.
My life has ended, dude. I'm like in the 101, I'm like, oh man, this sucks, blah, blah, blah. And then I got the call and we did the film, and it was an incredible experience.
That's amazing.
I had...
so people can check it out on...
Oh yeah,
on Netflix,
on iTunes or Amazon right now.
That's amazing. So Kodak recently released an article about you shooting something for Spielberg. So a lot of our viewers are up and coming filmmakers, who are aspiring to get noticed. So it'll be kind of interesting to hear your story on that. How did you create that in? We're talking about being yourself, but how did you create that in for yourself with one of the Hollywood's biggest names? Like, how does that work?
Yeah. How does that work? I'm still trying to figure it out. But if you really get to know me, you'll know that I'm a go-getter and I'm a hustler. I've always been that way. I mean, Spielberg, man, one of the, if not the greatest filmmaker of all time. Every time I'm on set and someone asks me and we get into film talk and someone drops Spielberg, I just like, I know more. Like, what's up? You know?
You're like, okay, we're doing this.
But the thing happened was when I wrapped a Sony picture series called The Oath, and on my way back to Los Angeles, in a plane ride, I meet this wonderful, awesome woman who asked me where I'm from, you know, chit chat. And she's like, "Oh, you're a cinematographer. That's so great. You should, and you're from Puerto Rico. Oh, wow. You know, Steven Spielberg's going to do the remake of West Side Story." So it was actually at 30,000 feet that I had the idea of, I had this click where I said, basically, you know, 25 years ago, he changed his cinematographer because he needed to go to Poland and shoot a black and white film. And obviously that picture is Schindler's List. And ever since then, him and Janusz have been shooting together. So because due to the subject matter of West Side Story, and now my body of work and my age and where I'm at in life, I approached my team and my representation and I said, you know, due to the subject matter, would he consider Hollywood's first Puerto Rican cinematographer that specializes in narrative? Because I want to be very clear about that. There's like different styles of cinematographers, but I specialize in narrative. So I love to light faces and I love to capture emotions and mute and tell a story, you know? And that was really neat because then what that proceeded into was me obsessing over writing him a letter, and then I wrote him a letter, and then the
Handwritten letter. Email. You said letter, so now I'm like.
I typed the letter. I didn't do it. I don't handwrite because I'm left-handed.
Fair,
so
but
it's the best excuse ever. To not handwrite something because it's true. It'll look weird. You know?
I'm fair.
Yeah. So I hired an English professor, got the letter written, you know, sent the letter. The letter was well received. And then everyone was like, okay, now you need to wait. And I'm like, what? I don't want to wait. So I had an idea of making a lens test for him and Mr. Kaminsky. And it was an incredible experience. I think for 2 months I canceled everything around my life. And I got in touch with Kodak and Panavision and all this stuff. And I proceeded into choosing 3 scenes from the original film and shooting my own interpretation for him as a lens test.
That's cool.
Yeah,
very cool.
And I just want to say that I'm so proud of it, and I really have to say that this could have never been possible if it wasn't for the cast and crew.
Yeah.
Like for real, especially the cast. They're amazing, and I feel so bad till this day because it's not public yet. And I've requested permission, but the dancers they really made it happen.
Put it on there. So we still.
And we shot it on film.
Oh.
And I had to argue that with everyone. It was insane. It was like, if I'm gonna present this,
I want it to be
Spielberg, it has to be on film. There's no way around it.
Got to be OG. Yeah. So obviously, meeting somebody at 30,000 feet, how often does it happen? But what tips can you offer up artists on like drumming up new business if they're like, you know, trying to get out there and, got a question from the audience once we finish that. But thank you guys. Also, send your questions in. We want to hear them. I appreciate that. But yeah, what tips can kind of be offered up for drumming up new business for artists?
Honestly, you know, this new generation, I was having this conversation the other day with a friend of mine. She's a super talented DP. Her name is Kate Arizmendi. We were talking about how, like, this new generation, we have so many different ways to approach our potential clients. And our potential clients can be either a director, a producer, a production company, like, you know, it's different. Yeah. So in a way, I think my best advice for the newcomers and for this new generation is you have Instagram. So it's incredible. I've gotten work, and many of us have gotten work just off, wow, I love what you posted, you know, on Instagram. Is that film? Is that digital? Blah, blah, blah. I have this budget. Would you mind shooting it? Here's the script. What's your email? You know, it's out there now.
So
And
yeah, like,
so my best advice, honestly, is to launch yourself out there. If you're a new cinematographer and you want to see your work being seen, best advice is hit up a bunch of directors. And if you feel that your work is at a caliber that will represent the production company that you're contacting, send it to them too.
okay.
You know?
Yeah. So you got to put in the work. You got to like make those connections. Any
Oh,
way
totally.
You
I
can,
mean,
and like, yeah.
there's so many ways. I came up the set photographer way.
Yeah.
I used to be a set photographer.
Okay.
And my secret was, even though I was a young DP, I would get a gig as a set photographer on a big budget show or a big budget commercial. Since you, the viewer, you're already a young DP, take the math from the DP's camera on set and bring it to your still camera. Mm-hmm. So when you take the pictures, it has a very cinematic tone. So when you give it to the client and the producers and the
You're
directors,
still able to like
they
tell that
will-
story.
They will remember you.
Yeah.
And that's what happened with me. I would take set photographs that would match exactly the math that the DP was doing on set and his lighting. So I
math.
would have sometimes clients and agency or agency people saying, "Oh, well, let's look at this angle, or let's
Yeah.
do this," and then they would be like, "No, actually, that's just a set photograph."
Yeah.
And then people would be like, "Well, that kid needs to be a camera operator,"
Ah,
because then you're showing your eye, you know.
that's
So show your eye and show your style.
yeah. Show your personality, and that's how you can do it through Instagram. You got to like be able to utilize those.
A website,
platforms you've
obviously, a website definitely helps. It makes you very professional. But this new generation, you know, Instagram kind of changed the game.
Okay. So, with your 8 years of experience creating films for theatrical release, TV distribution, it'd be great to get your insight, I guess, like on the whole process. So, can you like talk us through the process of developing a visual identity, like during pre-production? How is that?
Totally. I have to see it first before I shoot it. If I can't see it, I won't shoot it.
Okay.
I've approached directors and say, "Hey man, like, I love that you love my work,
Yeah.
and I love your work, but I think you're better off with this DP
Yeah.
that shoots underwater, and it's better, you know, for you
Yeah,
to do
that
that."
connection. Yeah.
So my whole process is I have to see it, and I use music a lot. Music is a very big inspiration.
Like when you're plotting and planning. you mean?
Completely.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Classical, orchestra, anything with no voices.
There's a distraction. I
I can easily pace back and forth in a room for 3 hours and listen to that song 65 times.
Right.
Come out and have 3/4 of the film in my head, like, okay, this is how it's gonna be.
Okay, so and for some, hopefully maybe like envisioning it, a vision board, something like that to.
For sure, music, and another thing that really helps me through the process is the dialogue, the tonality of the script. To ask your director any visual references, any specific way that you would like to make your film look. They'll tell you. Usually, they'll know really quick.
Right off the bat, yeah.
Yeah, I want Rafael, but I really want like a Blade Runner look. So can you make it look like Blade Runner-ish?
Yeah.
So then you know, okay, so the whole movie has no fills, just gorgeous key lights and, you know.
Yeah.
And work with the production designer. That's step 2.
Okay.
I become buddy with the production designer on everything.
Okay.
Everything from like, what do you think with this lamp? Or do you like this lamp?
Yeah.
This lamp better, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's better. You know? After that, I get into casting. And I bug my producers and my directors about who are we casting? What are their skin tones? Then after that, I go into costume department and you want to become best friends with wardrobe. You really do. Because that is such an essential part
It's a character.
So it's an essential part of photography,
Yeah.
especially for textiles.
Yeah.
And I'm a fan of color contrast. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like the way you look awesome, but like I would tell the production designer, man, let's put up, you don't think we should have like a yellow wall behind it? So to make her green and her lips pop and her eyes pop more. And that would just automatically happen, you know? And then the third thing is, pre-production is everything.
Yeah.
To coordinate your entire schedule with your first AD, it's like such a beautiful gift and essential process of pre-production in a film. Because if you can do that, you as a cinematographer are in the front of actually navigating the way the movie can be shot accordingly to the schedule in favor of light.
Yeah.
Because this medium is all about light and shadows. So before anyone says anything, it's all cinematography. So as my approach continues, I start looking at the world within the script completely mute.
Man, having to see so many things. It's just
Completely.
having to like
So when I
touch points on everything.
yeah, absolutely. And even better, man, the best part is the night before. You kind of don't sleep, and then when you go to set, I just kind of flush everything out so it subconsciously stays there. But then I approach it in a very abstract way. So when I step on set, the first question that goes through my mind is like where I want my shadows.
Okay. So we've got a couple more questions left, then we're like running out of time, but we can probably talk about this for forever. But two things people want to know about. Working on a limited budget, so let's start there. For people working on a limited budget, what types of resources do you recommend, or like, what does one do?
Well, I mean, again, this new generation, they lucked out because technology has provided them with a better use of voltage when it comes to lights. You know, you don't have to rely on renting tungsten heavy lights or having to rent a generator.
Okay.
There's lights now that are incredibly good, and the photons and the texture of them are incredible. And they just connect to a wall. 20 amps, and you can have a 3 lighting key setup in no time.
And start.
So that's one of the things I would advise the newcomers on a budget. Find what's the best way that you can incorporate that lighting into the story without noticing. So without using without using a generator, without using certain stuff. And cinematography is art. So art travels with history. So right now, cinema's going through a period where, if you notice lately, a lot of stuff is being lit by practical lights. Because the cameras have gotten us to that point.
Okay.
So instead of us lighting it like normally we would on a Martin Scorsese 90s film, we can just have an LED pop up there and use our practical right in the dining table, and it would work as your key light, and it would work fine. Okay. You know, locations. Talk to your director and ask him what's like our biggest shot. What's the most technical, most difficult stuff, and see how you can allocate whatever you have with the budget for that.
So lighting, location.
Yeah, it really depends on the script.
Yeah.
Because the script's the blueprint. At the end of the day, it's all about the story, and if the camera language falls into what you're shooting, and you don't, and the story is, if the story takes place in a hiking trail, and it's an incredible story, but it's a hiking trail, then that means you're probably going to save a lot of money by not needing a generator.
Yeah.
You don't need a massive electric
things
team.
in daylight outside where you can get, where you can get all that taken care of.
So then you schedule that hiking scene with your first AD. So you schedule it in favor of the sun.
Yeah.
And you can keep the style that you want.
Yeah. So definitely a lot of moving parts for sure.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I want to touch base really quick, my last question before we wrap up. You were talking about the team. How do you assemble the right team to make it happen, especially when if you aren't that well connected yet? Like, how do you know,
if you aren't that
if
well
that's
connected,
the right person?
Yeah, if you're not that well connected yet, you just kind of have to trust.
Trials and tribulations.
Kind
right?
of, yeah, because it's a very political industry.
Yep.
And your life experiences and the relationships that you build throughout your career that's going to become your family. Mm-hmm. And those are the people that really, without a doubt or any conversation, will always have your back. Yeah. Where you can easily enter a crew.
Yeah, you have your posse.
Where it's just it can get weird.
Yeah.
and all you and your job is to help the director capture his vision.
Yeah.
Do
you recommend? This is a personal question. Do you recommend networking or going through
That's the only thing about film school that I would say I think sometimes you get your money's worth is that because I'm self-educated, but I think the cool thing about film school is that the people that you grow with and become buddies in film school,
Right.
those are probably your friends you're gonna get gigs from in 5 years.
Yeah.
Versus a person that maybe is self-educated, has to find
Has to
relationships
work their way
in 5 years to work your way in to you know, to get into that. That's why I have like 5 mentors.
Yeah.
They're, you know, 2 DPs, one is retired, the other one is an executive producer. So I can kind of get a knowledge of all the aspects of.
Get
of
on
the
LinkedIn,
industry.
guys. Get on LinkedIn. Find out who you went to school with. Find out, use those connections, make those personal connections, because obviously a lot of the relationship building that you've done just being yourself has kind of worked out in your favor.
Yeah, and there's great seminars now.
Yeah. Oh, seminars. Okay. Cool.
ASC Masterclass is phenomenal.
Yeah.
CGI class is phenomenal. But as soon as you tap into these little groups, you know,
Yeah.
start looking for your gaffer and your key grip. And,
Yeah. Yeah. So for, you know, if you're not living in a big city here like LA that has a huge film community, obviously, make sure you're turning to your local organizations and things like that to really connect yourself to the film community, because it's all important. So I feel like we could have talked so much longer about a lot of things. We could talk more. But
find your directors.
Find your directors.
Yeah.
That is the note to take out of this. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank
That
you.
is all the time that we have today. We'll be back, though, September 24th. No nonsense advice for artists. I won't tell you who the guest is yet, though. It's a special surprise. But we know her, we love her, and we can't wait for her to be back here up on this table with me. Follow everything at Raw Artists, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all the social platforms. We're on all of them. # Industry Exchange for more updates on all things Raw. And we'll see you guys next month. Thanks.
Ciao.